Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. Today we're going to cover a topic that is a huge chunk of your wedding and also your wedding budget, and that is all about wedding catering. So there's a lot that goes into wedding catering even before you book your wedding caterer. So I'm going to make this video a two-parter. Today we're going to talk about kind of everything that you need to know before you book your wedding caterer. And in the next video, I'll talk more in detail about the different types of wedding catering, different styles, what your options are there, pros and cons of each, and all that fun stuff. So today I wanted to touch on all of the important factors that go into deciding on a wedding caterer and making those initial decisions for your catering for your wedding. So there are 5 main factors to consider when you're looking at wedding caterers, trying to make that decision of who you want, what you want your wedding catering, what you want your wedding catering to look like. First one is timing. So this is a huge factor when it comes to the food and catering at your wedding and the timing of all of the things that go into producing a wedding dinner. So making sure that the food is finished on time, that you're staying on time for when dinner is supposed to be served, that it is being served in a timely manner, and that things are being set up and sustained in a proper way so that you don't have food sitting out and getting cold or changing temperature in a negative way. You also want to consider portions. So there are different catering styles and different caterers that will produce different types of portions, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Also, options. You have a lot of different options when it comes to wedding caterers, not only with the type of cuisine that you want to have, but also you want to make sure that you are providing guests with options for your guests' particular guest list. So you want to make sure that you have something for the vegetarians in your group, maybe the vegans, gluten-free, just having enough options so that your guests are able to eat something that they can enjoy or that they can dietarily have, but also don't want to provide too many options, because when people have too many options, especially at a wedding, it's hard to make a decision. And when we're trying to do things in an efficient manner, especially when you have things like lines, buffet lines, whatnot, you want to keep your options limited, but also kind of balance that, having good options for your guests, but not too many options that they're overwhelmed. Obviously, cost is a huge factor to consider when determining who your wedding caterer will be and the decisions you want to make here. In fact, catering is probably, if not the largest, one of the largest ticket items for your wedding. Couples will spend a huge chunk of their wedding budget on their catering. Oftentimes this also includes alcohol and bartending as well, so sometimes you'll see that lumped in with that catering budget, but keep in mind, expect that your catering is going to take up a large chunk of your wedding budget, and that's okay. Things that go into the cost of wedding catering are obviously the food costs, so you're going to be paying for the actual food that you will be having at your wedding, but you also are going to be paying for things like the servers. So determining on which style that you have for your wedding catering will also determine the amount of cost you can expect for this. So obviously, like something like a buffet is going to take less servers than a plated meal will, so you'll be paying less there. You also want to consider extra staff members for busing, for cleaning up, if you have people that are going to be serving at cocktail hour as well, that's extra hours. So food, labor, hours, and often rentals are the main costs that go into wedding catering to be aware of. And the 5th and final factor to consider is your style of catering. The 2 main styles that you will see at a wedding is typically buffet or plated. So with a buffet, that is pretty standard. Everyone probably knows what that is. You can either have it served, staffed, or not. If you've got a buffet line of food, guests will go get in line and go through the buffet line, picking and choosing what they like to have. Another option is plated, and that is just like it sounds. The guests stay at their seats, and servers will bring plates, already prepared plates of food to you. There's a little bit more that is involved with this, as you have to know the amount of entrees per each type of entree prior to the wedding day, and there's a little bit more planning that goes into this. Another style is family style, which is just like it sounds and reminiscent of family dinners you probably had at home, where you have dishes or platters of food that is passed around to each individual table. Another type of style that is done at weddings is food stations. With food stations, you have literal stations, so tables set up around the reception space of different types of food. And often this is different types of cuisine. A lot of times it'll be an interactive station, so like a carving station or build your own taco bar, or I've also seen sushi rolling stations. So this gives you an opportunity to be kind of more unique and creative and interactive and have something a little bit different from a lot of other wedding styles you might see. Another catering style is food trucks. Now, this is something that has become more popular in recent years, and we'll get into a lot more with food trucks because there's a lot to be said here. In fact, if you want a video done just on having food trucks catered at your wedding, let me know if that's something that would be helpful, and comment in the comments below and let me know. With food trucks, you have a lot of different options, which is always fun, and guests seem to like having more options to choose from and kind of being able to find something that they really enjoy. And it's also just a fun environment. It's a little bit more casual, it's unique, you can personalize it, but there's a lot that goes into planning when you have food truck catering at your wedding. The final style we'll talk about is not very common, but it's definitely an option, especially for those of you that are trying to cut down costs at your wedding, and that is to just serve appetizers and desserts. It's not something that is typically seen very often. I haven't had any clients do it. However, it is always an option. Just be prepared that people might think it's weird. People typically go to a wedding expecting to be fed like a full meal. That being said, if you're having an earlier wedding, like an afternoon wedding or even a more like late morning wedding, you can get away with serving just appetizers and then doing some dessert later on. That being said, you're probably going to want a lot more appetizers, like options when it comes to serving the appetizers, because like I said, people are going to be expected to be fed. So if you're just going to have a small amount of appetizers, it's more of just a tease to your guests than anything else, than really giving them anything that's going to fill their bellies. So those are the main catering styles, and like I mentioned before, the next video will go much more into depth of each of these styles and hopefully helping you determine which style is right for you and the pros and cons of each catering style. So some other things to consider when planning for your wedding catering is bussers. This is a huge, often overlooked detail when it comes to wedding catering, and you want to make sure that, provided that you are having a very limited wait staff, so you're just doing a buffet line with maybe a couple of servers, you need to have that conversation with your caterer and talk to them if busing is something that is included. If not, you need to have a plan for this, because that is one thing that is often overlooked, like I said before, and then you're stuck with the end of dinner's over, everyone's gotten their meal, it went really efficiently, everyone's eaten, that's great, but now you have tables full of dirty plates and food, and now what? So understand whose responsibility it is to bus the tables, and make sure that you are hiring somebody or having somebody on site to help bust your tables. Snowballing off of that is wait staff for serving champagne or serving waters. If you are planning to have water glasses on the table, you're likely going to need somebody to be serving the water, or having water carafes on the table. So making sure that you have those rental items, or you have the people there to serve these if this is something that you plan to have. Another thing to consider is all of your china, flatware, and glassware, and where that is coming from. Does your caterer provide that? Is that an extra rental cost? Do you have a lot of options here? Is it just a kind of standard, plain, very simple style of china and glassware? And if that's something that you want, or if you want to do something different, knowing what your options are here and having a plan in place to either rent glassware, china, flatware from a rental company, and then coordinating with your caterer whether whose responsibility it is to bust the tables, scrape the plates, pack them all up into their crates, and deliver them back to their home, or have the rental company come pick them up. Also keep in mind, this is necessary for dessert as well. So if you're planning on renting china, plates, forks, napkins, all of that stuff for dinner, make sure that you're getting enough for dessert as well as appetizers, especially if you're having plated appetizers during your cocktail hour. Oftentimes, many caterers will provide this for you. It's just going to be a more standard style, typically just like a plain white china. If that doesn't matter to you, then I would highly recommend using your caterers, rentals for whatever you might need for dinner, appetizers, desserts, and all of that, because then they will clean them up and take them with them at the end of the night, and you won't have to coordinate pickup services and cleaning up a third-party rental. And the final detail that is often overlooked when it comes to catering is your cake cutting. So I think we talked about this in a previous video, but your cake cutting, if you plan on having a full cake cutting ceremony where you are going to slice and serve the cake for your guests, you need to make sure that you have somebody planned to cut and serve this cake for you. Oftentimes, caterers will provide this service for you. It's just an additional cake cutting fee. So make sure that you are paying attention to that when you're booking your caterer or looking at caterers and finding out if that's an option for you and making sure that you have that in your contract. So that's just kind of a main overview of wedding catering, what to expect when you're looking for your wedding caterers, and what the most overlooked details are and factors to pay attention to when determining the wedding caterer that is right for you and what to expect. Be sure to tune into the next video and I'll go into a lot more detail of the different wedding catering styles that I touched on in this video and the pros and cons of each to help find the catering style that is right for you. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.